We just saw, literally yesterday, Don't Worry, Darling.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
this movie was. I didn't know it was possible to make artistic filmmaking so underwhelming. like, like, it was, right? Like, it had to be just
No,
that
I
little bit
I
underwhelming. Like, the premise was, with the exception of that twist,
mm-hmm.
the premise was fine. I had no problem with the premise, and then the twist happened. I was like, oh, well, that's not interesting, like at all. Um, this movie has, well, it much like what is it, The Woman King. It has its own set of controversies during its production.
Do you want to save that for the last?
Yeah, we'll save it to
So
the
that so
last.
go.
Let's at least, because I think we have to, for this one. I think I do want to try and avoid it as much as possible, but I think for this one we're gonna have to, and we'll put a big old spoiler in the. I'll put a big old spoiler on it when it gets to that with the time code, and if you don't want to listen to it, but this movie we kind of have to spoil the ending
Yeah,
part.
for you to be able to understand what we take issue with and why there are certain issue like problems with the film, we have to spoil certain details. It's not one of those films where we can vaguely talk about it and you'll be able to get our opinion because it's a very specific and niche kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, it's very fucking bizarre is what it is. Um Likewise, so is this movie in a multitude of ways. Very odd decisions in the process of making this film. Uh I guess kind of the premise here is, and you don't really know much in the beginning. It's rather shrouded in mystery up until the end, which the premise being, of course, these families in air quotes set in the 60s, uh, or the 50s. I really can't tell. It's both kind of the same decade, in all honesty. Uh, Basically, a bunch of these families, these couples, go to this middle of nowhere location called the Victory Project, and it seems like they're carrying out their normal, very traditional 1950s 1960s lives, and then we focus on one particular wife, and there's bizarre events that happen, chaos sort of ensues, and of course we have the layer of mystery. What are they telling the truth about this? Is this really, basic shit, basic thriller shit? In all honesty, it's kind of a trope in the genre. um Actually, you want to know what's crazy? Fucking Shyamalan did this first. You remember The Village, right? Like, a you know an old, what's the word, an old time period with mysterious events happening only to reveal a
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I know what you mean.
and only to reveal something completely different. um Except here's the thing: The Village was good. The Village, love or hate The Village, love or hate M. Night Shyamalan, the twist, it kind of worked. It worked for that movie. Here, the twist didn't. And I recognize, reason why I compared this to Shyamalan's, like, I kind of cracked the code. Like, this movie was trying to be a modern Shyamalan, almost, in the way that it sets up a unique premise largely layered in mystery until the twist comes into play and sets in motion, basically a game changing twist. That is where the whole meme comes in. What a twist! Same thing. Jordan Peele does as well. Peele also has that same style. It's almost like this movie is directed by Olivia Wilde, of course. Uh, it's like the female Shyamalan meets Jordan Peele, and it has a meta commentary. It's not. It's rather bizarre because it. I didn't know it was possible to put a woman's touch of sorts on a Shyamalan or a Jordan Peele movie. And what I mean by that is, as you watch the film, I don't know if it was intentional, and I don't know if you picked up on this either, Akumu, but the way the story is conveyed and the way it is its visual language, I don't know how they did it. It was like if you could visually demonstrate giving a movie a woman's touch, it would be this one, because I can't fully describe it. It's very effeminate. And no, I'm not just talking about because there's, women empowerment in it. It's because in the way it communicates everything, it's almost like it's different than even like what, art movies we get now, nowadays, or even back then, which are largely, it's a largely male driven sort of thing. But if you compare Shyamalan and you compare Peele, or you compare Hitchcock and Kubrick, the classics, artiste directors, you'll find that there's definitely something that's not masculine about it, particularly in its visual language and how it showcases, especially how it showcases women. It's weird. Like, Jesus Christ, there are men that make fucking that just place a tripod. Fucking, like, they make movies off of fucking strippers, and they can't accentuate the female body quite like this movie had. I don't know whether that made me uncomfortable or just like weirdly fascinated, but the way that it put.
Are you referring to those shots with like the 50s, 60s women and their bodies and whatnot?
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
It's
okay.
weirdly accentuated. It's like I. It, I don't get it. I don't get how I just call it a woman's touch because it's definitely, stylistically speaking, it's very different from the male driven artiste movies, and I think that's good. It's different.
Movies, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's different because I mean it goes to show that Hollywood still has gas in the tank even after over a century now. And it shows that there are other artistes or auteurs, because I do believe in the auteur theory. I do believe that there's still voices that can be heard. Which love or hate Olivia Wilde, I think that I can see the auteur theory working very well in this. You can definitely tell that this is a piece of her is definitely in this movie. I'll say that.
Yeah, yeah. And when it comes to the way the film is shot, and plays out. I think it's shot very well. It's shot in that same sort of, not same, similar to Shyamalan and those kind of films. Mainly his kind of films. We're not talking about like Avatar or whatever, because that was honestly that you could barely even consider that a Shyamalan film because that was complete. You take that movie and you compare it to the rest of his, completely different. So any of his other films, the way they're shot and or how other, I guess you could say, visionary and um what's the word, psychoanalytic maybe, or in-depth sort of human nature kind of films, right? The way that they are shot and shown and whatnot, it has that vibe to it, and it's very good. I just wish they would have leaned into it more. Not that it wasn't enough, just that a little bit more would have really helped. um
They would have sold it, basically. It would have sold the point.
yeah.
Well, it's a very human
And
film, you know?
yeah, yeah.
But it's
I'm gonna be
also.
honest.
Hmm?
I thought at the beginning, this is before we get into the spoilers, I thought at the beginning it was gonna be something like what's that one town that had like a cult of people that like lived there and shit? Um, I can't remember the name of it, but it was like this town. It was like a cult of people. I thought it was gonna be something sort of like that, where it was like these people went out there and sort of it was like this separated society, separate from society, like from the rest of the Western society. I thought it was like a separate thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like about a quarter of the way through the film, and so that's what it sort of that's where my brain went at first, but obviously it's not exactly that.
No, I think the. God, I can't. I can't say it enough. The twist for this movie, very fucking underwhelming. Which it's sad because this is one of those movies that it really, by the time you get to the ending, it's like, wow, they wasted the movie. There are some endings that will literally make or break an entire movie. Your movie could be shit throughout the first and second act, but the third act, climax, and the end, the conclusion, if that's solid, it makes up for the entire experience. And this is the opposite case, where the beginning and middle are great. Third act, trash. In my opinion, it's very trash. You had a differing experience, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Let's see. Let's get into some bizarre choices, like some of the choices I think are there. It's obviously symbolic in a sense. There's a lot of symbolic imagery, um, especially with eyes, because I mean eyes are naturally the window, to the soul, but this movie kind of uses that a little bit to its advantage to kind of hint at uh the truth of the situation. um there's other bizarre symbolisms as well, I think, that, I mean, it works great in the context of the movie. Doesn't save the movie, but I mean, for building up the suspense, uh it does well. um Soundtrack, uh, I had problems with the soundtrack. Actually, I wanted to bring up the soundtrack because it is an odd choice itself. Sometimes it'll have the 50s, style of music, and then it delves into when wacky shit starts to happen, or when it's the female lead is being chased down. Um, Essentially, the music cuts to this weird all female a cappella like score, and I, I couldn't get behind it. It was almost, it felt like, you know how um in the Snyder cut of Justice League, it had that weird like female like voice pick in pretty much whenever Wonder Woman is doing something badass on screen. It was, that was never good, but it was like that except more obnoxious. And I don't think I don't think I've ever had a an experience with a soundtrack or score that was where it felt obnoxious. I couldn't get that out of my head. And I don't, it doesn't match with the aesthetic of the film. It's this bizarre choice of trying to be zany and different, and it doesn't work when you're constantly surrounded by uh the 1950s, which, I mean, in context of the movie, I it doesn't make any sense to have a soundtrack that's contrasting to the 50s, that's fucking all female a cappella. I mean, for God's sakes, I would sooner, considering the twist, I would sooner expect dark synth than a cappella. Very just bizarre choicing in the matter, and an unhealthy obsession with spinning spinning shots, like rotating the camera around people, which only really happens in like it's the vast majority of, not the vast majority, but it's more prominent in the beginning of the movie. Also, for whatever reason, while the female lead is how do I say this and not get YouTube to demonetize me? She gets demonetized. We'll say that. We go to she has the demonetization logo imprinted onto her, and then when it comes to when it comes to this movie, it does have bizarre choices that they don't. It sometimes it bothers me because it's almost too zany and too weird. But I don't know. It didn't seem to completely affect me by the time the second act comes around. It sort of takes on. It sort of evolves from those choices at least a little bit, and then it picks back up again with the acapella by the third act. The acting is spot on though, and I think that comes from Olivia Wilde. Basically, well, she is an actress, but the acting is phenomenal in this movie, except for Chris Pine. I think that's his name. Is Chris Pine? That's the guy. That's what his name is, right? Guy from J.J. Abrams' Star Trek.
I think it's Chris Pine, but I don't know. I know that he plays his Wonder Woman's love interest too. There's that, but
Yeah.
I think it is Chris Pine.
Yeah. No, he was he was being too obvious as the villain. It's like, I get that there's like a mystery surrounding this and he's kind of at the focal point of it. But could you be less obvious of a villain in your opening monologue to your entire community, where you're selling the point so hard, so that nobody will have it fly over their head that I'm the villain of this movie. It was like it was almost butt fucking obvious. Like I'm not saying that you have to be, it has to be like a twist villain, but it's like there was no gradual like realization in the fact that he is the villain. It was just, here's obvious bad guy number one. It could be just Chris Pine's acting. I know that character, excuse me, that character was supposed to be played by Shia LaBeouf. But well, that's gonna go more into the controversy segment of this. Um, but other than Pine, pretty much everybody is fine. Like everybody's really good, actually. Not fine, really good acting. Going on from here. Um, I'm trying to think if I missed something. No, I think we can move over into the story, the fantastic ass story. Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. Okay, I'm hesitant to start this. I'm hesitant to start it because it's like the way that this movie backfires. It's That's almost an art form in of itself how badly it backfired. Because it was going strong. I was like, okay, because I already, in reality, I'd actually been spoiled about the story, but I was like, okay, maybe they might actually pick up. Maybe even knowing that, I can at least, the blow could be softened for me. It really didn't get softened. If anything, it got worse. Um, Akumu did not go into this knowing like jack about the movie, so I think he had a different experience from me. I don't know if you're did or didn't.
Um, uh, what are you referring to specifically so I can I can answer?
The storyline and the twist. How
No, I was completely unaware. I knew of a little, like a very small piece of the controversy surrounding the film. I knew nothing about it. Um, and so I was intrigued by the idea of watching it. Um, I was a little worried, but the movie turned out way better than I expected it to. And like it's not an all around bad film. So I would say I was kind of aware of the movie, but I didn't know what its name was. I had only heard a few other people casually talk about it, and not anywhere near enough for me to form an opinion about it. Um, and so it was a clean watch for me. Wait, how did you end up seeing this film?
I had saw it advertised once, but how I was informed of how it um well, I won't lie. Initially, how I knew about it was from my barber. Uh, I
Oh,
literally talk with him about, because he knows my life a little bit, so we talk about movies a little more. And he mentioned that he would actually not support this movie for its controversies, uh, and the fact that that some of the things that Olivia Wilde had said, um, in regards to some specific individuals, and well, you know, to Shia LaBeouf, because there's a whole beef that happened between those two because of this movie. He would not support it, so I was like, oh, that piqued my interest. Then I saw a video essentially deconstructing the entire movie, and at that point I was like, wow, this is, and it included the controversies. And I was like, damn, this is kind of bad. And lo and behold, it was not as bad as this video made it out to be. Um, in its deconstruction, not a good film. I think the ending, the third act, basically soiled pretty much the entire thing. It's not. It's not like it's garbage, absolute like I hate this movie type of deal, but it's an underwhelming experience, and I knew what was going to happen going into it. So that should kind of say something. Um, we could go pretty much into the story now, though. I'd say. Uh, okay. So we go in to this, the Victory Project, and our main protagonist, she's having, living her happiest life as a housewife in the rich ass suburban, middle of the desert. Her hubby works for the mysterious mega corporation thing called that isn't explained until later exactly what it is. And it's really, as things progress, oddities begin to ensue. Um, Things will start to move on their own. Whole ass walls. Mysterious like events occurring. A insane woman, her neighbor, who is also in a couple. Pretty much everybody in this suburban area, by the way, is just couples with kids, or couples with non-kids, on perpetual honeymoons and shit. And one of these couples, African American couple, this African American lady goes insane because she walks out into the desert outside of the Victory Project with her son, and her son is just gone. Now, she basically has numerous mental breakdowns up until the point where our main protagonist literally sees her, and please do not demonetize me, YouTube, endeth her life via vocal cord snip snip, and with Cuddy Cuddy, and that is just
You know what?
rolled.
I know a simple way to say this. Um, you know how Moses split, what was it,
The Red
did he, what did he
Sea.
split again? He split the Red Sea. She split her Red Sea located at her jugular.
Oh my god. Okay. Oh my god. That's why she was insane. She saw God in the burning bush, Her bush, right? Oh my god. Okay. So after that happens, now our main character starts to go insane with experiencing these nightmares and hallucinations on her own, and even to the point where we even
Well,
see
hold on. You're
distortions.
you're you're missing a certain detail. You're going a little too quick here. So basically, what happens is they first learn that their friend wandered out and shouldn't have. Okay, she wandered out with her kid. Okay, she came back. She didn't have her kid. She claimed that she took her kid. All of the other friends think that this other friend, I think her name was Margaret, but don't hold me on that. They think that that bitch is cuckoo and that she lost her own kid out there. Now, our main female lead, actually just the lead in general, the husband is very much a second. Our main character here starts to not slowly question things. I don't. Did she start having the nightmares before?
No, 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 yeah,
Um,
not, she had a little bit of nightmares beforehand, and she was not really questioning her reality, but she was experiencing these oddities. And then after her friend basically parted the Red Sea at her jugular, that was
Yeah.
when she started like getting rampant nightmares and distortions. And
And her husband telling her that she's being hysteric, so no one believes her. No one believes her. Um, Including her own husband, and so she's sort of stressed in this situation where she's starting to question everything around her. And like you can when we both say that the acting is phenomenal, especially from the main character, you can tell from the beginning of the movie she's in this suburban bliss in the 50s and 60s. And then as she gets stressed, you can really see it take a toll on her. Like it's acted and shot very well, the stress and anxiety build up.
oh,
Like you
absolutely.
as her psyche, right, her mental health sort of slowly declines or decays. Um, because of the shit that it's the fact that it's lingering in her head and no one fucking believes her about it. So she can't even speak to anyone about it because the moment she does, oh, she's told that she's being hysterical. That she's that actually I believe later on there's a scene. Um oh wait, we missed something. We missed something in the plot. Before her friend parts the Red Sea at her jugular, our main character goes out of the zone just like her friend did. And she finds this weird structure with mirrors all around it. And she makes contact with them. I'm right on this, right? I'm not mixing up
Yeah.
the plot. Okay. And she touches the mirror, and suddenly everything goes blank. And then suddenly she wakes up at home in bed, her husband arriving home. And she tells him, wait, did she tell him if she went out yet? I don't know.
I
I think she kept that a secret. No, she kept that a secret until later. That's
yeah.
right. So she doesn't tell anyone about this, and she does, but she does question her husband on how she got home because she had no recollection of it.
Damn, I really just like oversimplified a lot.
Yeah, you really skip past those things.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think the ending is what really caught my like really caught me, to
Oh,
be
your
honest.
focus was absolutely on the ending. Yeah. Um, and so after all of that happens, right? She goes out on her own. Then later she starts. The after she goes out though, there's a bit of a buildup, right? And later is when she sees her friend part the Red Sea at the jugular, and then she like sees this in these men in these red costumes with a V on their shoulders grab her and grab the friend, and they grab her and drag her off, and you see her get pulled by these men at each arm of hers. They grab her, they scoop her up basically at her arms and shoulders and drag her off while this other dude approaches the leaking, no, you know what, let's not use that word, the deceasing woman, and so they drag her off, and she's in the house, and she's telling her husband what she tried to have seen, and he thinks that she's being hysterical. He's trying to explain to her that it was a simple accident, that she had slipped. I think that was, what was it, that she had
That
slipped
she
and
had
did something.
slipped and fell while cleaning the windows on the roof
Yeah.
of her
Um,
house.
okay. She doesn't believe that, and obviously that's a load of horseshit. So then it reaches the point. I think I don't know if I'm skipping past something here, but the main doctor visits, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I can't remember if something caused that or if the husband requested him to visit. Um,
She it would no. She had like a freak out in a ballet class, because that is a reoccurring thing in the movie in the beginning of her
yeah,
day to
yeah.
day normalcy, essentially, being shattered. Then comes the doctor explaining hysteria again, and even
That the trauma. are like people that see traumatic things have distorted memories and uh, behavioral changes. Um, Obviously doing what her husband was doing, which was downplaying it and making her seem as though she's a fucking loony. And he offers her medication, which the husband and her say that she doesn't need. And I think that's when she sees inside his bag something about like a security risk, which, again, when you're being told by some supposed doctor, psychiatrist, or whatever, and she even questions him at some point on how he managed to supposedly fix Margaret, which was the woman that, Now, in regards to that, he basically tiptoes around it. Okay, it's like the Liver King tiptoeing around the fact that he's not natty. Okay, now almost no one is going to understand that reference, but to summarize, he's lying through his fucking teeth. It's painfully obvious. He doesn't directly answer her question. So to give you an example, she asks, "How did you fix her?" And he says, "Well, you see, she had multiple issues going on, physical and mental. So after we took care of the physical things, she still had the mental stuff to deal with." He doesn't explain how he fixed her fucking, gaping throat hole.
How they
He
resealed the
completely,
Red Sea.
yeah, it doesn't go over that at all. He tiptoes around it and is like, "Well, she's going through mental issues right now, but she's recovering." You know, horseshit. Okay, she knows it's horseshit. Um, and the husband, of course, is seemingly trusting of this doctor, okay, and of victory. Now, Joe, would you like to take things from here?
Uh, Considering after that, our protagonist, sees the little folder the doctor kept of I think Margaret. Uh, Conveniently forgets the suitcase. She went to go grab it behind their backs. Turns out it's a load of nothing. It's a dead end essentially, and I think that's when things start to pick up with the oddities, and she sort of almost snaps out of her oddities and hallucinations and massive time skips, which are, well, let's admit, convenient to the plot. Um, and she becomes, well, more hysterical throughout uh, the latter scenes, even all the way to a massive, employee party at Victory, where her own husband, Jack, I believe his name is promoted, onto the main board, and she's still having, almost like a scared child. Almost, she's because she's seeing all this shit. She's broken down, um, and and throughout basically her husband's triumph and this triumph at Victory, which, mind you, the setup is still widely, unknown. The twist is unknown. She's still seeing shit. She even sees shit almost from another life. Ooh, it's like there is another life. Um,
Like the bathtub scene was very interesting, which took place right before the ball.
mm,
The ball is where the husband, Jack, was promoted. Now, before that, there was this really cool scene, which you noticed this detail, and I did not. So I'm gonna let you go over that. Do you remember what I'm talking about,
oh,
though?
the unique distortion where it's like,
Yes.
we see her basically sink into the tub to essentially go into the next scene. Uh, Except this tub is surrounded by mirrors, and one of these mirrors, creepily enough, one of these mirrors, our main protagonist just like looks like turns her head right to the camera. It's like, fuck, dude, the
Yeah. And
unnervingness.
it was something I didn't notice, but you did, and I think that, again, like what I said before we got into spoilers, which was that visionary idea of this being shot and this reality being poor. It was it was a very good idea. I just wanted more of that sprinkled throughout. Um, I mean, again, I know you don't like the twist, but at least have some more of that kind of stuff to lead up to that kind of twist. And so that's what I wished. And it reminded me, again, I'm not comparing these films. It reminded me specifically, though, of the new Matrix movie. And if you don't know, um, again, this is a spoiler for the Matrix movie. So if you don't want to know, it's not a spoiler necessarily to the plot, but a specific scene. In the new Matrix movie, um, oh God, there's a certain scene where Neo is at the at a mirror, and you see a similar distortion effect to the right of the screen when he's taking his meds. Um, you
I
see
forgot
actually
about that.
you see a completely different face than his because he looks completely different to everybody else. And so it was similar but also very different. And it sort of gave me those vibes, but instead in this movie it was actually properly done and really eerie, even if I didn't notice it the first time when you showed me it and asked you to re-roll it, um, to rewind it. It was good. I wanted more of that. And then there's the ball scene, which you already explained with like the promotion that happened, which was a complete surprise. But he got promoted, and they start doing this just having fun, dancing, um, and the wife is all that shit still in her head, and all the people being happy around her just doesn't feel right with the fact that Margaret's dead and everyone's just having a blast. So, and not only that, but the shit that she knows about Margaret that is being downplayed. So she goes to the bathroom, and her friend comes in, and she confesses to her friend.
Played by Olivia Wilde. Yes, she has her own
Yes.
character in this.
And the friend sort of also downplays. You know what I mean? She tells her, "You're sounding exactly like Margaret. You're being crazy. You're being selfish. Your husband is having his moment, and here you are making it about you."
And that carries
And
on. That still carries
yeah,
on. Hell, that carries on into another scene, which, by God, the amount of fucking parties thrown in this fucking storyline. The whole
yeah,
ass next scene, the whole next day, there's another party thrown at her and Jack's place for Chris Pine's character and the all the hierarchy of sorts. And there's this, as everybody is being jovial, and the wives even sort of antsy. Olivia Wilde's character is not there, even though basically her and the main lead, they're essentially buddy buddy, the bestest of housewives. And we get to a point where our main lead, she's finishing up the main courses, and in comes Pine, again with the obvious villain shit, basically sort of torments her almost with the knowledge she's come to know, even saying that he's expecting he likes being the challenge, that the great men who create things, they're only great because they are challenged, which is creepily sexual in a way, given the context of the era that this is taking place in. And hell, that spawns on to a whole dinner scene sequence where of course she challenges Chris Pine's character at the table, brings up some of the oddities, like, oh, how is it convenient that everybody seems to meet their partner the same way in the same three cities, the same honeymoon in the same places. Oh, ain't that coincidental? And it just keeps the fuck up with this hallucination shit. By the time it gets to that point, it's all, you know, it sort of becomes like it's good at building up the painfulness of this repeated gaslighting and this repeated sort of plea for her to be heard. It does that really well. It continues into all the way to the end of the scene where, you know, eventually everybody's sort of fed up with the questioning, and, you know, because everybody basically worships this guy, Chris Pine's character, you know, like a god, sort of the dictator of victory, which, you know, of course that leads to our lead and, you know, her man's having yet another discourse after it all ends, where ultimately she pleads, you know, for her to, you know, that they needed to leave. She was done with victory, she's out. And like the beta male cuck this man is, he says yes, only to have her damn near in the car, him at the wheel, and then these red men with the V's for victory come in and take her the fuck away. You know, one last trap, in a sense. And here's where the great part is. Here's where the greatest part of the movie comes into play. Where she's being, you know, I don't know what the fuck you would call it, experimented on, treated? Well, we'll call it treated in air quotes for her psychiatric problems. Then we get the twist. And if you don't want to hear this twist, I'm going to put the good old time codes up. So, you know, you don't have to watch this part until you've seen the movie. However you choose to watch it. I'm not going to judge however the fuck you watch it. So, suddenly, it cuts to present day. Our main lead is a fucking surgeon at a hospital. She comes home from work to Jack, listening to a podcast, looking like he fucking somehow he just ends up looking like he was on like the My Little Pony Reddits or something. Like, he just looks like a fucking filthy ass neckbeard out of nowhere. Where it's revealed that he did have a job. He fucking lost it somehow. It's never explained. The main lead started picking up more shifts at the hospital, and then the unhappiness of, I guess, a modern day relationship comes into play, which is you know, all fine and dandy, but Jack, he's listening to a fucking podcast. Now, audience, take a wild guess. With this podcast, oh so coincidentally, being done by Chris Pine, oh so coincidentally leading to, all of this nice little utopia, it's not real. Somebody said, you know what? Let's take VR chat and just imprison our wives in there. Imprison our girlfriends in there. In this 1950s fucking, like, male supremacist VR chat world where all these motherfuckers... Okay, bear this in mind. All these motherfuckers have to do is place two little iron, like, metallic things to the side of their head, and it, like, it puts, like, red rays into their eyes. I don't know how to explain it otherwise, but essentially, the Victory Project is just a fucking is just the metaverse for beta males. I don't even want to say what these are actually supposed to be until we get into the controversy segment, but beta males. And that, of course, the good old treatment doesn't work as we suddenly cut back to inside chill out VR, and you know, and of course we get the trope of, well, it didn't really wipe her memory that well. As she returns to the Victory Project, she inevitably has yet another breakdown, only for her to remember pretty much everything. And it's this weird fucking back and forth. This back and fucking forth. Because, well, she's being imprisoned in a fucking video game. Essentially, that's what it is. The Victory Project, one giant fucking game of VR chat. That's all it is. And this is the problem with this twist. It gets worse because as we have of course, this argument back and forth with Jack in the main lead. Eventually, she, in a fit of passion, breaks a glass cup over his head, and it kills him. Not just in VR, essentially, but in real life. And that goes into Olivia Wilde, coming in over the chaos, because Olivia Wilde's character, her bestie, is right next door and heard all of it, and it is revealed, you die in the fucking game, you die in real life. Now, audience, let me tell you why I had a problem with this, okay? Numero uno. If you... I guess it would make sense for the wives, because you don't want them to tell anybody that you have your little beta cuck server on Gmod. But, audience, if it's a male supremacist game, or virtual simulation, whatever, that it's male dominated, it's male controlled, oh fucking why would you have a death switch for the men? Little counterproductive there, ain't it? People can just naturally get offed in this universe all willy-nilly, and I guess it would create some narrative problems later, I suppose. But actually, Akumu, you made this point so much better than me. I don't know if you want to take your side, because you have a different take on this twist.
So there was two things I had said, and one thing is what they could have done, which would have been way better. Well, you know what? No, I'm not going to say that idea until we get into the controversy with this film. So I'm not going to say that idea until later.
Well,
now, so yeah, we'll get into that in a moment. But my thing was it's obvious as to why they did it the way. The reason why the characters die in real life when they do so is because when she does kill her husband with the glass, right? Keep in mind, her husband in the real world is right next to her in the bed. Okay? And he can leave, I think, whenever he wants to. Because when he goes to work, I believe that's them leaving the game. Or whatever, the virtual reality world. Now, and this virtual reality world is sort of done by, like, shooting the stuff into their eyes and stuff. But anyways, the reason why they're killed off is because if she would have hit her husband and killed him right, like, in the virtual reality world, if he wasn't killed off and he just went to the real world, right, he would easily keep her from escaping. Easily. Because the moment she would escape, all he'd do is just He's like right beside her in the real world. So it was done to get around that issue. That, and the bonus to that is they get to easily kill off the main bad guy easily. So that's why they did it, to prevent, because if the boyfriend didn't die and she did manage to escape, well, he's right fucking there. There's no escape because you're gonna go right back in. So
I don't think this entirely fixes it for me either, because she wouldn't be able, theoretically she wouldn't be able to escape anyways because she's handcuffed to the bed.
oh yeah,
So it's like no matter what, she's not escaping. Like she like that's the okay. There is a whole ass sequence, this third act where, Olivia Wilde being the only woman that actually genuinely knows that this is a simulation because she lost her kids at birth. So because only Olivia Wilde's character can be, the other good guy. And this sets off essentially the main character in this car chase sequence so that she can essentially leave the simulation. And she's being followed down by all the guys with the red jumpsuits and shit. Actually ends up killing the doctor because apparently he's also in charge of the simulation somehow, that's never really looked into. And it's this whole fucking sequence because of course she eventually gets the fuck out. She eventually escapes. The good ending. Problem with that is she's just gonna be tied down to the bed when she wakes up. So I don't know how she's supposed to get out of that, but especially since people are, according to Olivia Wilde and her character, people will hunt her down in real life too. Because everybody who's a man in this simulation is a soy jack that fucking imprisoned their wives or their girlfriends or their whatever because they're in unhappy relationships into these melanistic fucking female imprisonment VR chat worlds. For me, this doesn't work, and because if number one, if it's a double-edged sword, because if Jack is dead, she can't fucking get out of the constraints. If he's not dead, then he can easily just keep her there, assuming that he's even alpha enough to even let that happen. But you sort of write this double-edged sword, because now you're leaving the audience with this thinking about the ending almost a little too hard, when it's supposed to be this triumphant moment. And in the back of my head I'm going, yeah, she's still gonna be in the bed. She's still gonna be handcuffed to the bed, guys. She never left the bed, guys. She's also, here's another thing. How do we not know she's malnourished? What happens if she's just malnourished on the bed? Like she's anorexic. She looks like that one bitch from Pirates of the Caribbean nowadays, where she's just anorexic for some reason. Body positivity. Yeah, because if she's weak like that, she's especially not getting the fuck out. Like, it's creating a lot of narrative problems, where it's like, if you didn't have to really do the VR work. Honestly, they could have just actually literally just kidnapped these women. and make it an actual physical place, just off the radar. I mean, for God's sakes, apparently in The Village, in M. Night Shyamalan's The Village, they can just, random people can just pay for airplanes to just not go near a specific area. You know, spoiler for The Village. So, I mean, it shouldn't be hard for them to do it too for the Victory Project. It makes... I'm sorry, the idea of it being a VR world, you know, this simulation for soy jack cucks to place their wives in, or girlfriend, whatever the fuck, so that they, you know, they can live out their alpha male fantasies that they won't even be able to achieve because they're soy jack Reddit users. Not working for me. Literally not working for me. It's just, it's not, no, not fucking happening. I can't, oh my god. Kills the entire movie. Kills the entire movie. And while we're on the topic of the soy jacks, allow me to delve into the controversy. Now, first controversy. So, apparently, all of these men in this movie, they are incels. As in involuntary celibacy. Now, audience, the one core problem with this, of making these men incels, like, okay, incels, bad guys, I get it. Incels are fucking dipshits. They have no game. They have no, they ain't no alpha. They want control because they can't get women's. I get it. Incels are fucking cucks. So why are they all why are they all depicted as having girlfriends and wives in this movie? You know, the one thing that would make an incel not an incel. I don't know if I don't know if you can call somebody an involuntary celibate
when they're like, because all of the men have taken their wives or girlfriends that they weren't in happy relationships with and sort of put them in there. So for them to have been in relationships with them, they wouldn't be incels. And that's why my idea that I mentioned previously but didn't specify was, okay, fine, let's go with the VR route. Sure, whatever. Let's have it so that these incels, okay, kidnap these women, take them to the facility, and put them in the VR shit. There you go. You get your incels, you get the VR shit. It makes much more sense.
Well, it just goes to show that these people don't know what incels are if they can't even get that right.
Well, I mean, it goes to, that shows they don't know what incels are, and then also the fact that these people deem, this is the other controversy, they based Chris Pine's character off of Jordan Peterson, and at the beginning you can see that if you know about Jordan Peterson and know his mannerisms, like it's sort of more of a mockery of his mannerisms, and you can really tell that these people don't know what fucking incels are when they can't even get the basic thing about incels down, which is they can't get laid, they can't get attention from women, they can't get relationships from women, thus they hate women. And the second thing is deeming Jordan Peterson, of all people, king of incels, when he's been on record numerous times telling incels that speaking either directly to incels or about incels, and saying that hating women, if you're going around dating all these women, or no, if all these women aren't picking you, it's not the women that are the problem. It would be you.
You're a young man, and all the women are rejecting you. Who's got the problem? It's not all the women. That's a bad road to go down. If all the women are rejecting you, it's you.
If these men are unattractive to women, I don't mean just physically unattractive. I mean, women aren't seeking them as mates. They need to become men.
Yes, they certainly do.
This is
That's
what it
the
is.
solution.
I would say to young men who are irritated at women is, if you're irritated at women,
you know, as a class of creature, there's something wrong with you because they're right. You're wrong. They're right to not pick you. If they're not picking you, it's because they're right.
Wow.
Now, that might get, I know that's a terrible thing to say, and I know perfectly well, it wasn't like I was particularly successful with girls when I was young. You know, so I know what that rejection is like. I know what that fear is like. I don't know it as well as some men know it because I wasn't rejected outright. But what you have to understand is that what do you expect from women? If you got pregnant because you had sex, you'd be pretty damn choosy too. So, you know, clue in a bit. And then, well, don't they find you attractive? Well, maybe you're not. Like, have you paid attention to how you dress? Do you have a plan? Are you as educated as you could be? You know, are you a liar? Are you a rabid pornography user? Because maybe that's undermining your motivation to seek out a woman and grow yourself up. It's like, if you're rejected constantly and you're out there really trying, you know, because that's another thing to ask yourself is, well, how many women have you actually asked out? And are you so sure that you're not picking women who will certainly reject you because you're trying to bat out of your league? Because you might be. So, and I'm speaking about this as a clinician too, because I had plenty of men in my practice who were, you know, radically unsuccessful with women. I had one man in particular. He was so afraid of women, he couldn't use the phone. He was too afraid of everyone to use the phone. And he had been bullied like mad. And you know, he had his problems. So I know what this is like.
So the guy that's telling incels not to be incels, and that mentality is dangerous, is the king of incels. And we're going to make a movie where we have or we're trying to make a incel cult-like thing, but all the incel males have women, and it's like they portray in the main character Jack, right? When he's in the real world, he looks like some dude that's on fucking like 4chan and in My Little Pony and incel fucking shit. He looks like that, but the fact of the matter is he's in a relationship with a woman who's a nurse. Does that fit an incel at all? Like, his appearance fits, but the fact of the matter is he's in a established relationship with her in the real world.
And she seems to be very supportive of him, because there's even cutaways where, you know, to sort of hint at this real reality, that this is a simulation. It will cut to this part where she's comforting Jack because he had lost his job. And he's worried that he's not going to be able to support her. And you can kind of identify, like, I'm in a relationship. This kind of thing does worry me. I do worry I'm not going to be able to support my partner. You know, it is a genuine worry. However, and this is a big however, this is completely inaccurate to what an incel is. Incels, they don't get girlfriends. They can't even get a whiff of the fish, much less tame the cat. Okay, it's not happening. They have shit game, and they believe it's all women's fault that they don't want them. That is, you cannot place incels in a situation where they have girlfriends, because at that point, well, it defeats the purpose of the term involuntary celibacy, because they're not celibate if they have fucking girlfriends. It's just, these people, Jack is just a beta male, and he's just unhappy because he has this perception, this old school perception of how relationships should work, which is where the negative parts of this comes in, because he's so bent-held on being this alpha of making this relationship happy that he's willing to drug induce his girlfriend and then place her into the metaverse so they can live out this 1950s fantasy as the Victory Project. That doesn't work on a number of levels. But let's get into the third and final controversy. Akumu, did you know that Chris Pine's character was supposed to be played... No. Was it Chris Pine's character? I think it was Chris Pine's character. If it wasn't Chris Pine's character, it would be Jack. But either one of the two. Shia LaBeouf was supposed to play one of those characters. Would you like to know what fucking happened?
Yes. I didn't even know he's supposed to be in it, but...
Okay.
Yeah, tell me.
Here's what happened. Scheduling conflicts for chemistry tests with I believe one of the female characters, and Shia LaBeouf conveniently has a video of Olivia Wilde, it's essentially proving that this is it was a scheduling conflict. There wasn't any of the bullshit that Olivia Wilde would go on to say, which she would go on to say when the movie was starting to come out, that Shia LaBeouf was removed from the project for being creepy and forceful on the female actress. And then after Shia LaBeouf blew the whole thing out of, blew the accusation out of the water with his evidence, cut and dry evidence that proved that there was just scheduling conflicts that prevented this from happening, she just didn't acknowledge it. Going on the Late Show with Colbert, I think it was the Late Show or the Tonight Show, one of the two, with Colbert, and as Colbert asks the question, she just says, "Well, I don't get, you don't see these kind of questions asked towards my male colleagues." Oh, well, no shit. It's like the male colleagues don't start fucking drama in the workplace over a scheduling conflict. So not only do we have the absolute misdepiction of incels, not only do we have Jordan Peterson, a man who has gone on record demeaning incels as the king of incels, but we also have false accusations being placed on Shia LaBeouf and no accountability towards it. And my whole thought process is with particularly this drama, and don't get me wrong, I feel bad for Shia LaBeouf, and I do not like Olivia Wilde for this. I'm not going to hold this against the movie, because, I separate the art from the artist, at least to some extent. But this never needed to happen. She should have just told the truth right there, but no, she wanted clicks. And like, I get it, Hollywood. Men bad. I get that. Men can be bad. But there was absolutely no fucking reason why that ever needed to happen. And all it does is it's gonna bog down. That's why my barber, by the way, wouldn't support the movie, was because of the controversy surrounding Olivia Wilde and Shia LaBeouf. And it all it does is it just turns people away. You never had to do this. You wanted to do this for the quick view. It never needed to happen. It should have never happened. And yet it happened. God. It's like commentary drama. It didn't need to happen, but it happened anyway. God, what else is there even to say? I think we've covered all the points. I've covered all the points I wanted to go over. I don't know if we were missing anything. If you had anything else to bring up about the film, Akumu.
I mean, just like you said, separate the art from the artist. And absolutely. And with that said, the shit with Shia, I didn't know about, but that was fucked up. instead of just saying, "Oh yeah, well Shia couldn't be in this film because of scheduling issues," she instead bullshitted this reason of him making other co-stars uncomfortable, which is a kind of claim that could easily affect his career. And that type of shit is the exact reason why the Me Too movement was such a fucking flop. Because it, shit like that could easily affect his career and get people like that movement on his fucking tail for no god. Because she wanted to dramatize something that didn't, it makes shit up that didn't even fucking happen. Like, and while I think that she can direct films, that she can improve, I do think that she should, I don't know, maybe apologize, because that's supposed to be a profession thing. You know, it's not like YouTube or anything where you can just fuck around and shit. It's that is like a professional career.
Well, and
That
let's
that
be honest, like with it's accusations like that which make it harder for real victims to, well,
be
state their
heard.
piece.
Yeah, because then it's like, oh well, maybe this person's lying. It's like, how about we not lie about that so that we don't have that stigma?
Which is unfortunately the type of thing that happened to the Me Too movement. It's been stigmatized as to, well, this, I don't know about that. You know, it's that, you know, that Johnny Depp's wife over there. I don't know about that one. But yeah, I think that really covers everything with this movie. I think this is, what is this? The longest fucking one here? The longest TLT we've, so far? Okay. So I think that'll cover it for this one. Hopefully I'll get one last commentary done before the end of the year. No guarantees and no promises, but hopefully I can get, one last commentary done before it all comes tumbling down. Anyways, we'll see you guys later. Catch you on the flip side.